All right. So I am on the DL here with Stevenson Demorcy. And Stevenson's so gracious to join us today out of New Jersey, but coming to us from New York today, correct?
Touche, touche. We're here for a contract today, so we're taking this meeting in New York.
Excellent. So Stevenson, you're with Steam Drones, um, and we're going to talk a little bit about kind of the role STEM and STEAM has played in your life, and just excited as heck to be able to talk to you about it. So let's start with your story, because I've seen some other interviews with you, and I think you've got a fascinating story in and of itself, and how you came up and kind of what you all the things you overcame and went through to get to this point. And so let's just begin by discussing your background and kind of how you arrived where you are today.
Touche, John. Thank you for having me on the DL podcast. I've seen a great thing, especially with the last few of the interviews that you guys have done, and I really love talking about the education system. It really saved my life. We hate the redundant thing, but it really did provide an opportunity for me to just reach my highest self and reach the person I wanted to be. When I came to America from Haiti, I was literally 6. I did not know how to speak English. I did not know the culture, and it was pretty tough for me. So after going through ESL and English language learner, I went into special education, literally battled ADHD and just being able to focus on, just the basic skills. But like as I got through middle school, through high school, I went into advanced placement honors. And that was all because of STEM, which now we promote STEAM, but it was literally because of STEM. Having gone through robotics, having gone through race cars, I was able to put all my technical skills to good use. I was able to put the mathematics that I knew to use. And it just literally was something that I fell in love with. I fell in love with the culture. I fell in love with how helpful everyone was to each other. I fell in love with the collaboration. I fell in love with the problem-based learning as opposed to everyone just lecturing or speaking to me or just, regurgitating information for me to memorize. When it came to the STEM or the STEAM platform, I was actively engaged in my learning. And so when I got the opportunity to go to college, I studied mathematics and I studied K-12 education. And directly after leaving college, I went into teaching and launched U.S. First Robotics 1080 Education, NJ Drone Academy, National Society of Black Engineers, Biomedical Symposium, you name it within the STEAM or STEM platform. I have launched it for other schools. And, after seeing the trials and tribulations of all those programs, I came through STEAM Ed Drones, which is my own baby and my own love letter to the education system, and just paving literally the pathway forward.
Just like I said earlier, it's a fascinating story, and I want you to talk a little more about the role that STEAM and STEM have played in your upbringing. But how much of what attracted you to the problem-based model and the attributes of STEM and STEAM in the terms of as you were going and having to overcome some of these obstacles, did that feed into, is that what attracted you to the STEAM world? Did that coincide with what you were having to do in your life, which was problem solve and think on the fly? And, they seem to go hand in hand because what might have stopped a lot of people just seemed to keep challenging you, and you kept overcoming those challenges.
Touche. Touche. Definitely the way you just phrased that, we can definitely have to say middle school is the critical years, because elementary school, you're just, everything is math. You don't even have a topic. It's just math, We're not talking about linear. We're not talking about exponential. It's just math. And so for me, I enjoyed the logic aspect of math. I enjoyed the competition aspect, but I never saw where to put that. I enjoyed creating things, but I like, where was I going to have the opportunity to do that? Like, when I go home and I'm playing video games, that's, not really getting me to thinking about, hey, what could my future be? What are my avenues? And then I'm going through all these learning phases in which, you're in ESL, special education, and everyone has a special connotation of or the way they're speaking to you, versus when you're in honors or advanced placement and the expectations people put on you. And for me, those were like, I just did not know whether I was coming or going. I just knew my community constantly were giving me feedbacks. One day they considered me intelligent. The next day they considered me like not so intelligent, based on whether you're in ESL, special education, or honors or advanced placement. But for me, I did not have to worry about my intelligence level when I was in STEAM. When I was in STEM, when I was building robots, when I was flying planes, when I was building, when I was doing those mathematics, I knew there was a challenge in front of me. I knew I had the resources to get through that challenge. And I knew that I had to problem solve, one, bring my history into it, two, think on the whim to get through these obstacles. So for me, it was literally like, yes, the perfect blend of what was happening in my real life.
And is that what, we talked a little bit before about getting traditionally underserved populations into STEM and STEAM? Is that what has motivated you to reach out and we'll get more into what your company does, but is that what has motivated you to be able to spread what has been such a benefit to you to others? Be it girls, be it people in certain racial demographics that you've wanted to reach out and make sure they have the same opportunity?
Absolutely. And as you say that excellently. So for me, like, this is our regular curriculum, STEAM Ed Drones, the book you go through to learn everything about drones and how to think about it. As a Haitian American coming here, I was literally the only Haitian kid in a room full of Spanish speaking students. Like, literally, we all were stuck, but I was stuck further. So making sure you have a translation version for all the Hispanics who are in the room. So that is one way we're bridging it. Girls tend to look at things a little differently. So having a girls rock or a girls edition in which you're focused, the visual can be different, and that captivates them. So for me, when I think about bringing equity into the education system, whether that's racial equity, whether that's gender, whether that's social economic status, this platform sort of takes it, whereas programs like US First Robotics, you have to go out and hire an engineer to come in and help your group. But with STEAM Ed Drones, you kind of can take your mid to anyone who can operate a cell phone can start and build a platform and build a stepping ladder and pipeline into greater careers, into college, into exploration, into side jobs, into knowing, hey, what should I develop for the future? So for me, it was very big. So it was very important that I customize what I'm doing here with STEAM Ed Drones to not only get the main audience, because let's be 100% real honest here, China is definitely leading the market. America's not even on the top 3 or top 5. So all of us right now are like the minorities in this field. But in order to grab everyone, just made sure I had these different compartments that specialize to every group.
Wow. Well, I just, and I think what your program is all inclusive.
Yes.
Anybody that wants to learn it, you're just paying particular attention to make sure that those demographics that have not been really proactively invited into this arena are given that opportunity. That's a special focus of yours. And
Yes.
I love the fact how you've taken your own story and really fashioned it, taken something that's part of your story, something you're passionate about, and then I think you're really paying it forward to make huge dividends. Just a great story. The fact that coming up through ESL, and then you say you were in SPED at one point?
Yes, I was. Yeah.
And you end up going into the honors. I think is such a model and a a story of hope for so many kids out there that really are, they may not be immigrants to the country, but yet they find themselves in SPED and having to catch up.
Right.
And I think sometimes their mentality, it's easy to fall into, this is where I'm always going to be. And I think you've really shown how you've kind of climbed the ladder and shown that you can still have upward mobility, even if you start at a SPED level or an ESL. And so what an encouraging story. You mentioned in a previous interview that I was watching that one of your goals is to bring real life to the classroom.
Yes.
And can you talk a little bit more about what you mean by that?
Touche. So other programs, they do a. Let's not talk about other programs. We're STEAM Ed drones, right? So we have our drone. You're taking your drone, you're flying it. The same way you learn to connect your drone to your device in our program is the same way you do it in real life. You learning to take pictures, you learning to record videos, put those together. Those are things you actually do in real life. The side projects that we do, whether it's game-based, whether it's designing projects, whether it's construction projects, someone gets paid for those in real life. So literally all the skills that you learn with us, you can literally take it to the job market as is and get paid for it. So that is literally what we mean by real life. It is tangible. It's a device being used in the real world. It's smaller for you because you're in a classroom or a etc. environment, but the size of the drone doesn't determine the use of the drone. That's more so a matter of which golf club are you using and for, which hole are you trying to get into. So for me, it was literally about taking everything that happens with the drone, with mathematics, with engineering, all those stuff that happens in the real world and bringing a edited version of that into the classroom where everyone can have a basic level of understanding of what's going on.
Yeah, and I think there's just something to be said about being able to connect learning to the real world in any subject, not just STEM and STEAM, but I think the ability for, it's tangible for kids.
Right.
And I think some of those who may not be the traditional, have comfort in the traditional settings of books, this is a way to, in lecture style, even with books and lecture, there's just such a power when you can connect it. That's like the bridge.
Yes.
Some kids don't naturally gravitate to lecture style and in the books. And the more you can connect it to a real world scenario, the more it makes sense to them, to any student. But I think some more than others.
Right. You hit it right on the dot there. So say for example, in the mathematics classroom, you're learning all the stuff, but your question is going to be, why? Where am I going to use this? How is this going to be useful to me? In a language arts class, yes, you're learning all that stuff, but you don't really know why you have to read so many stories, or you might not see how science directly applies to you. But the way we take those subjects and edit them, you directly see the role it plays. You directly see how you can make a fortune from it for yourself or a side fortune. You directly say, hey, how can I impact somebody's life with this that I have? We just learned how to fly the drone, or your cousin is getting married. Are you going to be the photographer since you know how to do the drones? Are you going to give her some awesome shots? And that can be for anyone. You can literally get paid for doing that.
Wow. Well, and I think there's, that's another thing, is connecting the old thing of the traditional college method, or the college avenue does not have to be that way. And so I think one of the things that our district has is a fantastic CTE program in the career and technical education. And I think the value of that is for those students that don't see college and don't feel comfortable or fit with college, to show them that that is not the only way college is not the only way to continue progressing and moving forward in life. And,
Absolutely.
and I think there's something that to show them a whole new world of possibilities. It keeps kids in school.
It keeps kids in school and it keeps kids engaged in school. You're not just there showing up doing nothing. You're hands-on engagement and you're actively thinking. So one aspect of it is definitely teaching you everything you can do without college. That's like a very big part. All the things that we have come into this 21st century, whether, hey, we're going through coronavirus and everything is shut down and everyone now has to move to a Zoom or an online platform. All those stuff that you have to learn for the 21st century, we make sure you get that. But the other aspect is the way most adolescents intrinsically value college, especially after seeing some of their, brothers, sisters, cousin leaving college and not having the best of experience. But that's just for that particular individual. For me, I had a good time. For a lot of us, we had an exceptional time. So how do we take the community-based aspect of college, meaning I'm studying with my group of friends, I'm going out to eat, I'm partying with my group of friends, we are literally forming a success network. How do I now take that mentality and imprint it into a young mind so that they know that, hey, I can still go to college and I can still think about it. I don't have to put it off and say, hey, this is something I can specifically do. I can do this and go to college. I can grab a degree and be able to do this. I can actually use this to go specialize in something in college. And I can create my success network. And this is how I create my success network. And I don't necessarily have to feel like this is all on my shoulders and I'm doing this alone.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And there's something overwhelming to any of us when you feel like you're in something all by yourself.
Right.
And you just maybe think about something that I think there's something to be said for someone who doesn't see college in their future, but then they get into something like drones. They see the possibilities through the programs like you're talking about with yours, and they see what they can do with it. That may open a door to college that they had never previously considered.
Touche. And that has been the case. Like you get a stepping stone into what is happening. You see the drone is the size of your hand. Clearly, why not learn how to build it? Go to college and learn how to build it. Why not learn how to do the coding and programming? Just go to college and do it. So it's the next level. I would say it's an initial step, not only into college, but an initial step into life in the field of STEM or STEAM, rather.
Well, talk about real quickly what you think, and you and I discussed that you work with schools and districts that some where you concentrate more on STEM and some concentrate more on STEAM. For those who may not be familiar, talk about the differences between those two.
Touche. So the biggest difference is art. So the way I like to explain it to adolescents is the difference between an iPhone and an Android. Although Android offers so much more, the reason iPhones are so popular as a culture is because of the art form, the way, the message, the visuals, everything about it. We all communicate through art. So even this platform here, it's definitely technology, but clearly, you have your logo, you have your color palette, you have your sizing, you have a way to locate things. All those are art. All your app buttons are art. The technical stuff on taking off and landing the drone, that is all based on art. So art is literally the language everyone uses to describe what they are doing.
Okay. So it's really a matter of perspective.
Matter of perspective.
Okay, very cool. Why drones, Stevenson? There's STEAM and STEM. That's such a big area. It can mean so many different things. But for you, you went through and loved problem-based learning and STEM and STEAM through your background. But what about drones? What is it about drones that drew you in enough to start your own company? And what makes them so suitable for bringing that real life to the classroom?
The excitement level. We are all so used to seeing cars. We are used to seeing trains. And for me particularly, I feel like after looking at Katherine Johnson's story of getting us into orbit, after looking at all, the Wright brothers who literally got us into our first airplane, our first successful airplane, we're looking at this history that America has left behind of exploring what above 100 feet looks like, just exploring what the sky looks like, all the free airspace that we have there. So for me, one, it was that this is exciting. Two, it was the hey, we have a history of excellence here, and we have to continue it. And I feel like the third part is just all the jobs that are being created right now, all the jobs that will be created that requires these new technical skills. We haven't even, I feel like as a society, we haven't really even begun to fully explore what we can do with the airspace, whether we're doing deliveries, whether we're doing rescue missions. I don't think we have even stretched a 5% or even 1% capability of what we can do with the sky. So I feel like if we have a very good push within the American school system to really just explore the airways,
Yeah. Well, who would have thought just 5 years ago we would have really been seriously talking about Amazon delivering packages that way? Now they're not doing it everywhere,
mhm,
but yet, but
yeah,
it certainly has happened, and I think the concept was completely foreign to people.
exactly, right. And that was just 5 years ago, right?
Yeah, and it's. But then again, you mentioned the iPhone and Android phones. Something similar to that was unheard of, 15 years ago, 12
15
years,
years ago, the internet was unheard of. Like, right.
right. So um, I think we're slowly learning that, you know, the how technology is making such inroads into what we thought was, never thought was possible. And I think you're right that we're just scratching the surface
Right.
of what we're capable of.
Exactly. Like, you think of yourself, whether you're a parent or coach or etc., you might have a group of young scholars, on the football field just playing around and etc. One of your scholars might have asthma. And you have to think to yourself, hey, how am I going to problem solve this kid having asthma? Call the ambulance, locate everyone I can to find an asthma pump, or can the hospital just drone over an asthma pump for this kid? And, we're reducing casualties, we're reducing a bunch of things. Just sending, say, for example, a fire is happening. Do we send our firefighters automatically into the building? Can we send a drone to survey what's happening where the victims are so that way we have a clear and concise roadway or pathway to get our people there in and out safely? So we think about all the future uses, whether you're giving a defibrillator, whether you're putting out fires. The future uses are there. We're working on them currently, but we haven't even begun to really scratch the surface of what is possible.
What is it? What have you come into when you go into a campus or a school district and you see kids that have never had any exposure to something like drones before? What is the response from those kids, and what is the uh, how how gratifying is that to see something so foreign to them become something they can actually put their hands on, and just they enter a whole new world of discovery? That's got to be quite amazing and satisfying to see that happen on the faces of kids.
Right. And, like I mentioned to you, I literally just wrapped up a contract like this past Friday, and they sent me some testimonials about, how the kids felt about the program. And even when I would go in, they're like a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks into the program, and, you're just watching the excitement level, the fact that they're always engaged. hands are always on the drone. Hands are never not on the drone. The fact that they're trying to get through these missions, the fact that they want to do this work, that was the, I don't want to say the most surprising thing, but that was the most, that felt very good. It felt very good. It feels like I brought something to them that was already second nature to them, and they now have the opportunity to do what they really wanted to do. So that feels good, and being able to tie in the academics with the educational aspect of it is like, so we're not just flying a drone and having fun. That's half of what we're doing. The other half is literally we are learning and having fun. We're getting an education and having fun. And for me, it was a perfect blend of what real education should be: a ton of fun and a good amount of learning.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a drag, you know. It's just like anything. Sometimes you're going to have to do some things that aren't your favorite in education, but it doesn't have to be unengaging, and it shouldn't be.
Right.
And so how amazing is that to be able to bring that to students? That's got to be quite satisfying.
It is, especially when you're watching them do the research and they're telling you about their interest levels in drones. That just takes the cake.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you find that even though, flying a drone, I would think originally in the beginning is probably not a piece of cake. It takes having to learn it and some trial and error and working through some mistakes. Do you find them being so engaged that they're able to push through some of those difficulties and not let that stop them?
Absolutely. So the last conversation between like a group of young boys was, one said like it was their first initial flight, but one young fella had already flown a drone before, and they all got to the field there, and the fellow who had flown a drone before did super excellent, better than everyone else. And his remark was, "Hey, I thought you could fly a drone better than me." So you just get to look at those isolated events in which everyone can take a hold of their own learning curves. Everyone can push through. You take your time and you do want to be excellent in it. Maybe you don't fly the course fully. Maybe you're off and on the track, and you're inspired to say, "Hey, I'm going to be a little bit more steady with my drone maneuvers," and they get right back in there. They push through very much so.
Yeah, because sometimes you see in the classroom, I would have it with students where they get frustrated and they just kind of stop.
Right.
And one of the values I see of something like STEAM and drones is that you can look past that. You're so engaged with it. It's an obstacle, but it's not a barrier. You can keep pushing through and overcome it.
Right. And I think you hit on a key word there. It's an obstacle. We all know no matter what it is that we do, we get a new cell phone, we got to go through a bunch of things to turn the phone on, to get it to operate. We don't mind doing those things because we know what our end product and end results will be. We're happy to do it because we know we're going to have something real tangible, something real excellent at the end of it there. But there are other disciplines where you don't get that. You don't ever know. Everything becomes exactly a roadblock. It doesn't become an obstacle. It becomes a roadblock because what is the point of you going through this? Like, you don't see it. You can't feel it. You don't understand. But when you have that understanding, your roadblocks become more so obstacles, and you're engaged to get through them because getting through them is part of the fun of the challenge.
Well, and it makes me think of, you were talking about one of your goals is to bring real life to the classroom. Obstacles and problem solving and mistakes and all that is real life.
Real life.
And by training them in an area where they don't fail and have to learn from it and overcome is not training them for real life either.
Right.
So what a great scenario when you can combine engagement and the willingness to learn from your mistakes and build on them and push through to proficiency.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It's kind of like it ends up being it's like Yes, you do make a mistake. Yes, you are stuck, but now you're challenging yourself to get unstuck. It's like when you're playing a video game, when you're playing your favorite video game. For me, that'd be not like Naruto Shippuden. And I am stuck on beating this final level boss. I will stay there and finish beating and practicing over and over again until I can beat that level, until I can get to the next one. And so for STEAM Ed drones, it's literally the same way. Even if you get stuck somewhere, they're so enthusiastic. They're so ready to get to the next step that they take their time and they filter through and they figure out how to get through the obstacle to reach the next phase. And a lot of self-learning happens, a lot of group learning happens, a lot of project-based learning happens, and they enjoy doing it.
Yeah, and they come out feeling, I would think, a lot more confident and good about themselves. And they don't even realize how much they're learning probably until they're done.
Touche. That's the fun part.
You know, I found that hard, and I think any teacher has found that hard to get students to look past those tough moments when you're stuck, like you said, on a game level. Most kids playing a game will keep going and going until they get it. But, it's not as easy for some kids to see that same scenario in the classroom.
Absolutely.
And so, I think what you're talking about and what we're discussing here in terms of drones can be the case, and is really just a kind of a plus sign or a positive for just true engagement and out of the box thinking. I just am a big believer in that, keeping kids engaged in as many ways as possible and bringing that real life is going to show them as many different perspectives, because what one perspective works for this group of students is not going to for another.
Absolutely.
And so amazing. So talk a little more about STEAM Ed drones and your company and what your mission is. What do you do for someone watching this? What is your company's mission, and kind of what are you all about?
Touche. So I think there's two things. One is full steam ahead, which means dive full in. No matter the age you're starting, no matter the level of capability you think you have, you don't really know yourself until you're engaged and you're discovering yourself. So literally just take a full steam ahead approach to learning anything about this field, about what we are doing. The second is to stop putting limits and reach, which literally means, and I literally just had this conversation with some educators, and a few of them were parents, but we were discussing how her 10-year-old is now ready for Python and etc., and how she has absolutely no idea what he is even talking about. Like, she just showed me the end finished product. And so for me, when it comes to STEAM Ed drones, I literally like to implant educators, students, just take them and drop them down inside of a giant unknown vortex, giving them a roadmap and saying, hey, this is how you maneuver to get to your straight path. But as you're going through your straight path, maneuver out, discover some of the roadways, discover some of the puzzles, discover as much as you physically can handle to get to the next stop. So when we say stop putting limits and reach, it means literally what a 10-year-old is capable in Python, you will find a college student that is as capable in that as well. So don't put a limit on how much your adolescent can develop. Let them interact with it, let them discover it, show them the basics, and allow them to keep going. So for me, that's a very big part of what we do. There are students that we have that within the first day they picked up the drones, flew, programmed, executed way better than most of the educators in there. So it's really just about taking the limits out of learning and just allowing, whether you're in special ed, gen ed, honors, advanced placement, just take all those categories, take all those labels out, and just allow the adolescents to go through and learn and be their greatest, highest self, have that self-esteem, have their own belief in their own somebodyness in a sense.
And when when you're saying taking away the limits, I also don't hear you saying don't take away the expectations. I think there's still a certain amount of expectations, and
Yes.
it's not easy, but I hear you saying if a kid's willing to push themselves, take those restraints on and let them push themselves as hard as they want to.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We still always have expectations. We learn to scaffold based on those expectations. But we have to start defining what we mean by expectations. Is expectation the fact that I'm taking a sixth grader, one is in advanced and one is in sped? Is when I say expectation, is it that I'm expecting this kid who's in advanced proficiency to be really smart and this kid to not have the capability? Is that what I mean by expectations? Or is what I mean by expectation is I expect both these people to grow up to be self-sufficient, jobs, great jobs at that, community members? Is that my expectations? Because if that's the expectations that we're talking about, then that is something that I am 100% behind. But if the expectations that we're talking about is, hey, I'm gonna reduce the ladder of success for this person, I don't like that very much. For me, high expectations have always, the ones I placed on myself, the ones my parents placed on me, the way my community looked at me, I always had an intrinsic understanding of ignore whatever label someone or whatever level of intelligence someone may expect of you, and just perform to the best and to the utmost of your ability. So a huge aspect when we talk about expectation is we have to stop diminishing how far someone can go and focus on the expectation of growing them to fruitful members of society.
Fruitful members of the society that is the best they can be,
Facts.
And, I think sometimes it's real easy to get to where, they end up comparing themselves with other kids and saying, well, I have to be like this one, or I've got to be as good as that kid. And all we're asking students to do is be the best they can be. And it seems like what you're doing with your programs.
Right. And growth, especially adolescent growth, especially human growth, it's not a linear thing. It's an exponential thing. And this is a true story. Like my first year out of teaching, I went into developing this charter school, the mathematics curriculum, the robotics curriculum. And robotics more particularly had a really group of cohort ninth graders who literally were not expected to win the championship. They won it anyway. But there was these two adolescents. One was literally everything came easy to him, super smart kid, literally favored by all the engineers there and etc. And you had this other kid whose confidence was not so high, literally did not think anyone wanted to hear his voice at all, like literally absolutely zero confidence. And so we look at both these adolescents going into the STEAM platform and going through everything. We're now roughly 10 years later from that experience for me. And I'm watching the kid who had absolutely no confidence, did not value his own voice. I'm watching him in college. I'm watching him literally aviation club, robotics club. He is running things for different organizations in college. He is literally also doing things in his community to help out the incoming generation who do not feel so good about themselves. He's literally changing the rhetoric of what it means to succeed. And so when we look at the different forms of learners that come to us, it's unhealthy for us to use that to predict where they will be in the future.
Great point. Great point. And we've answered some of this, but I'm gonna make you consolidate it into one statement. right now with STEAM Ed drones and just in what you're doing, why do you do what you do right now? What's your why? I know we know your story. We know that what has brought you, but what is driving Stevenson Demorcy right now
If
to
I were
do
to
what
be
you're doing?
completely honest with you, I have it is one of those things that I have no idea why I am in this. I just knew it fell into my lap. It feels like no matter how badly I want to quit, I've been literally with Steam Ed drones for the past 5 years. Um, you would have thought I would have shut down my doors during COVID because clearly things were just super tough. Um, but for some reason, I got up every day. I paid a bill for a company, no one's doing anything. I'm still paying the bills. I'm asking myself, why am I still paying these bills? Um, and then I'm doing these. Why am I still editing these documents? Why do I create a Spanish version, a girl version? And this is all during the pandemic. I'm going through all these thoughts. Like everything is over. Everything is over. But like I'm still continuing doing it. And for me, it was just a very big reason to why I got up every day because there were some days that were literally challenging and um, felt like I lost myself a little bit. But this was the one thing I knew could speak to me and I could hear it speak and I could speak back to it and it could speak to me, although it's not a person. This pipeline for me, Steam Ed Drones, is literally, I guess I would say, my best friend. And I can't really separate myself from doing it, whether I want to do it or I don't want to do it. I still get up and I do it because it's like I'm talking to myself. It's my way of communicating to the world.
Wow. Well, and I think it's a simple case too of when passion meets purpose, and what I'm hearing you say is that it's seamless. With between you and Steam Ed drones, uh, they're one and the same. So, I wish you the best of luck and just continued success in your mission with your company, and then with the continuing to share your experiences through drones with students all over.
Touche, John. I thank you. I thank Temple. I think on the DL podcast, really love what you're doing in terms of providing an outlet for these forms of conversation. I definitely share it out. I think they're very, very useful for us to, I don't want to use the word reimagine, but I think moving the education system forward, because we still haven't touched the 21st century and we're not even thinking about the 31st century. So these conversations, I thank you for them.
You bet. Well, we always like ending up with a series of lightning round questions, and so I hope you're up for that.
I'm ready.
All right. So, they're quick. I may ask a follow-up question, but um, not intended to bust the brain or make you overthink anything. So
Touche.
here we go. Cake or pie?
Cake.
Any particular kind?
Chocolate cake.
Chocolate cake. All right. What is your hidden talent?
Ooh, my hidden, I think it's Steam. I honestly think it is Steam.
I don't know how hidden that is.
Touche.
Yeah. What never fails to make you laugh?
Um, telling God my plans.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. What is one thing you wished that you enjoyed more?
Definitely relationships. Definitely 100% relationships. 100 relationships.
Okay. Beg forgiveness or ask permission?
Ooh, beg for forgiveness. I am a rebel. Beg for forgiveness all day. Do my acting thing. Asking for permission. Yeah. Beg for forgiveness.
Okay. What are the three least likely words someone might use to describe you?
Lazy, incompetent, untrustworthy.
Okay. All right. Who inspires you?
Who inspires me? Jeez. Geez, there's been so many. Um, if I can give you a top three,
Sure.
okay. The story of Jesus, the
Okay.
story of Martin Luther King, the story of Malcolm X. I do not know how people selflessly give to themselves that much.
Hey, well put. Well put. We're going to leave that at that. All right, Stevenson, you are hosting a party and you've asked somebody to bring different things. So you've asked them to bring a dessert to your party. What is the lamest dessert that people pass off as a dessert?
Tiramisu.
Really? No go for you, huh?
I need a little bit of stiffness to my desserts for it to feel like a dessert.
All right,
But
tiramisu. I wouldn't have expected that one. Is double dipping at a party, speaking of parties, is double dipping a chip or something ever acceptable?
that's a no. If we're like, if it's like no, it's a no.
Yeah.
No.
You'd be surprised. We get all kind of answers on this one. All right. So Stevenson Demorcy has his own show. You're doing an interview with me. What is one question you might want to ask me?
Touche. So I know John is in ed leadership. I know John has specialized in middle school. I know John is doing a bunch of all these awesome things, this podcast, and just really creating a pipeline to give people like myself voices. So I'm wondering if John could say anything to the community about his life work, what would it be?
Man, you weren't supposed to ask tough ones. I think if I look back, because that's a whole different podcast, but I've had a variety of things that I've done in my professional life. And I was actually talking about it not too long ago with my wife about something similar to this question. And it really came down to helping people. I've done 3 or 4 different things professionally, but what was the common denominator that I enjoyed through all of them was helping people. And I've been in graphic design and advertising. I've been in education. I've been a fundraiser, and I think kind of I've been a coach. And all of that, it was a connection with people and helping people get better or get what they need.
Right.
And I don't think until I really stepped back and thought about it, even though the background and the various things I've done have been so different, that there has been a common denominator, and so, and that makes me feel good. Because I think when you're helping people, you're getting out of yourself and you're taking as many of the gifts that you have and trying to apply them to help make other people's lives better.
Absolutely.
And I definitely, I see that in what you're doing. And as far as providing you a voice, you're welcome on anytime to talk about what you're doing, because not only what you're doing, but what you've done to get where you're at, I think is such a great story that I think people need to hear it.
Thank you very much for that, John.
So, Stevenson, I wish you the best of luck. I hope this is certainly not the last time that we talk. And I want to stay in touch, and I want to keep on track and up to date with what you're doing. And so I definitely look forward to having you on again. You can follow Stevenson on Twitter at steameddrones.com. You can follow him and check out more about what Steam Ed Drones does at steameddrones.com. And just stay busy, my friend. Keep doing the good work, and just keep doing what you're doing, because you've got an amazing story and you're doing amazing things with the talents that you have. And as an educator, I appreciate that.
Birds of a feather, my friend. Birds of a feather. Thank you.
All right. Well, Stevenson, you have been on the DL. Stevenson Demorcy, you have been on the DL. And come back anytime. And thank you again.
It's my honor. Thank you.